Surprise! We're changing up the direction, the point of view, the angling. How are you all doing today? It's a bit chilly out by the waterfront. Unfortunately, I, number one, don't have my earbuds in, so you're going to get a lot of noise. You're going to hear the birds in the background, maybe even some people as the sun is setting. And you may also notice a little bit more breeze, a little bit more wind. How is everyone doing today on this Thursday? We're gonna throw back. So let's talk about sex. If that didn't get your attention, I don't know what will. Because I noticed a lot of engagement in my post today. How are you all doing? Gregor, what does vidimta mean? So here I am. I'm in Dunedin today. I have no buddy with me. Today we're taking a break on the walk. I engaged in a little time with my girlfriend, and we had some rather interesting sex talk today. Ladies, gents, let's get ready to rumble some sex in the house. What is sex to you? Everybody has a different idea of what making love is, what sex is, what feels good, what is acceptable, what is pleasurable. What is I want to know in the comments, what exactly does sex mean to you? What does a physical, intimate act of engaging in intimacy, whether it be making love? Share in the comments. I want to know what you think. I saw a lot of engagement regarding whether or not we bond with another person's soul as a result of engaging in sex. But that doesn't say much about what exactly is that act for you. Because very often it's a completely different perspective than what is being portrayed in the media. Right? I know, that song's in my head too, Amanda. What exactly is it? The media says one thing. You watch the TV, this is taboo. If you're religious, you were taught that, sex is only for marriage. And they don't even call it making love or the act of embracing another, and this divine union is really what it is. It's energy. You are bringing together energies, and it's sacred. It should be considered sacred. It shouldn't just be a disrespect to the physical being, right? And even marriage, Renee, marriage was something that was designed by man, not by God. This whole act of having to have a physical piece of paper to show, look, I'm married. Look, there's an ownership here. I own him, he owns me. Does that really tell about the intimacy between two people and whether or not they engage in sacred sex and lovemaking? Or is that really just about, a status? There's so much entrained in the whole, and I can go in different tangents on this. This is the irony, right? And so many of us are working to heal around sex. The traumas some of us have experienced and endured, abuse in our lives, myself included. I had to learn that it was okay to allow and to do certain things, and that there should be no shame or feeling guilty about pleasure, about touch, about sensuality. Because what is sensuality? Sensuality is not sexuality. And see, that's the interesting aspect, is many people will hear the word sensual and get all, they're talking about sex. No. Sensuality is about engaging all of the senses. Senses, sensuality, just looking at the words and how they've been misinterpreted, and every word out there can be turned around or manipulated in order to get you, marketing, media, advertising, to buy into something. It's all a manipulation. And so when you're really fully present with yourself, you'll know how to be fully present with another. Self-love doesn't have anything to do with touching yourself, but it does have to do with accepting all aspects of yourself from the inside out. It means you can look in the mirror and admire and really look with loving eyes. You can see yourself, you can taste yourself, I can hear myself, right? Feeling, all of those senses are important. And to become fully present and loving with yourself, it means accepting even the things you dislike. Again, that's integrating the whole into the oneness that you are. There is no separation. It's thinking that makes it so. If you feel you need to push things away or suppress certain things, that's something that needs to be healed from the inside out. Nobody can teach you, nobody can tell you what it is you need to reach in deep to do yourself. And so I know for myself, growing up, when it would come down to, because we can talk about all different forms of sex, right? We're talking, most sex, we're thinking about just the man penetrates the woman. And, they forget and completely leave out in the movies and everything else that a woman needs to be receptive. She needs to also, because it's not as easy as a man where you just stick it in. Sorry, fellas, but if you're a wreck, what's the first thing that the body wants to do? It wants to go inside. It wants to penetrate, right? And there's a lot of psychology behind not just physical penetration, right? Because there's energetic penetration. There's getting inside of a person, depending on how deep and how connected you want to be with the person. As a woman, I'm speaking from personal experience, we need to also feel receptive to it. Okay, yeah, we can be all excited. We can get wet. Yep, But that doesn't mean we're ready for it either, is it? A woman needs more than just, here, kiss me. We need touching, we need caressing. We need to be felt and to feel touched. The sacredness of a woman should be revered and honored. This is a temple. And whether your intention is to procreate, to create another life, or to bond and unite with this person, this being, this beautiful blessing that is before you, you should consider it like the divinity, okay? For those of you who are religious, you bless yourself when you walk into a church. There's holy water. You anoint. There's an anointing that should be followed regarding the beginning stages of any type of physical pleasure in this way. I know that Yogi Bhajan has spoken in Kundalini Yoga regarding a woman and a man. There should be a courting process that's at least 3 days leading up to the actual physical act. And he doesn't say, oh, you shouldn't have sex or you should do it a certain way, but there's a whole process of how you can prepare the woman, and the man can be just as well prepared. For a man to just, we're not plug and play people. Women are not plug and play. You just plug it in and, yep, okay, great. There's a lot of attention on male performance, but there needs to be a lot more focus and attention on whether or not a man can focus his attention long enough to recognize that he's anointing himself and he needs to be blessing and anointing. There's this interaction, this energy, this divine union that's about to occur, and that woman is going to take in all of that you orgasm, that energy. A woman takes on all of a man within herself just in the act. When a man orgasms, we take on all the partners and then some. We take on whatever's going through your mind, wherever you're at in your vibration, your thought patterns, your traumas, your hurts, your pains, your joys. We pick up so much more than you can even imagine. That's why women become intertwined with the man when we have that intimate connection, that relation. And that's why women become what appears to be needy. It is not. It's just hypersensitive and aware. We pick up on it intimately. Into me I see, because look what we just brought into ourselves. And so when a man wonders, why is this woman so suspicious? Well, she's picking up on a lot of your vibes. And then again, on top of that, if a woman is not healed within herself, she's also being triggered by whatever it is she took on from you. And so I do believe we have soul contracts, whether or not it's a pleasurable experience or not, whatever the experience, I do believe we're all intertwined. Now, the act of sex, sacred or not, takes it to another level. And there are ways to clear your history, your energetic imprint, and the imprint of a man within you. And that takes time. There are some kriyas, there's Kundalini kriyas for that, go figure. But there's so much more. There's a physical cleansing. It's even said that the woman's yoni, the woman's vagina, that if she is not properly excited, brought to that point of readiness for engaging, that it's almost just as bad of a trauma upon her as it is even if she's not ready. Like, we're talking, it's almost as, it can be as bad as what some would say a form of rape, because if she's not ready, and I'm talking about your lady bits here, your lady parts, you're talking about the yoni, the vagina, right? When a man penetrates her without her being fully present and ready for it, that's a trauma. That's a trauma to the physical body and the emotional body and the soul body as well. And so that takes a lot of healing in itself. And I speak from a personal experience because honestly, over the past several years, I spent over 3 years celibate because I personally was a sex addict. I loved sex, and I'm not going to deny it. I love it. I love physical touch. I love embracing. I like to feel excited. I love just to be touched. And that comes from being a young child who needed to be embraced more, needed more affection, but also from physical abuse as well. And when I finally allowed a man in my bed after 3 years, I realized it wasn't what I was hoping for. And it was traumatic, and I can tell you that in the next year of celibacy that I wasn't ready for it again yet either, because she felt traumatized, because it turned into a plug and play action, and I'm sorry, but plug and play does not work for any woman. Oh, we can talk. Yes, you know what? I will put that together. Thank you, Amanda. That's a great suggestion. So what I'm sharing basically was this man that I got involved with. We'll call him the plumber. I'm sorry, that wasn't very kind, was it? But it's true. When I allowed this person into my sacred vessel, my being, it was not sacred, nor was it respected as such. And it was embarrassing. At first it was more, I felt ashamed because I'm very easily excitable. It does not take much for me to climax, to orgasm, but it does take a lot for me to recover from someone who doesn't take that into consideration, that my pleasure is just as important. Is that so difficult to understand? But there's a lot of, like I said, there's so much focus on let the man perform. And you know, I think that also in itself is a trauma for men. And the reason I say this is because if the man is so worried about performing, then how is he able to work on getting the woman ready and focusing on her? And so that's a really big deal. So if more men were taught to spend more time pleasuring the woman, and I'm not talking about just bringing her to orgasm, I'm talking about readying her for the intimacy, the physical act, the sacred sex. And women respecting themselves enough to allow that, and to, I'm not saying demand, but have a healthy boundary and know that that is a necessary, loving act and sacred act. that a man being able to bring a woman to that point shouldn't be an issue for his performance. If anything, that should boost his confidence. If anything, that should put him in that place of, wow, I'm capable. And wow, that should excite you even more, don't you think? Any men out there have any words on this? I'm waiting. I see the ladies are always in the comments. But what about the men? What are your thoughts on this? Do you truly understand the beauty in having an intimate relationship with a woman and what it really truly means? What exactly it is it entails and needs of hers needing your attention, right? If you focus on a woman more, you'll naturally receive. The more you're giving her pleasure, the more you should be naturally receiving that same pleasure in return. And so this loving act of sacred sex, the foreplay, there's the word I wasn't grasping for some reason. Now I'm going to get some background noise because we have some people showing up for the sunset that's occurring here in Dunedin, Florida. And a pretty doggy. But that's the thing. Foreplay. And the word just doesn't even suffice, does it? It's not foreplay. It's pleasure. It should be given a more sacred word, right? It's not about foreplay, it's about tenderness and sensuality. Because sensuality is a part of everything in order to be fully present in every experience that you have in the moment, is engaging all of your senses. And so if you're not feeling it, it's probably because your senses are out of balance. You should have these smells and these tastes and these sights and these touches. Everything should be heightened. And if it isn't, then you're going to have trouble overall. Yeah, you can still orgasm. I've been there, done it many a time. But was it the true nature of an orgasm, of a climax? Or was it forced? And so I've been learning a lot about how orgasm is actually a sort of resistance, because there's no start and stop on a true orgasm. A true orgasm is fluid, is continuous. The body continues to tremble and waves. When you release, you don't get that push-pull. You get that, and you merge. You have two bodies that merge together. That's divine union, and that's gorgeous. And that's what we should all be striving for. Sex should not be, oh, I need to perform. Oh, look at me. This is the way it's supposed to be. No, sex is supposed to be something special. It's just that this whole media idea of, oh, look, everybody's doing it, so I should be doing it too. And, I want to feel good, and this is the only way I'll feel good is if I have someone inside of me, or, me on top of it. Whatever it is that you're seeing in advertising, it's so easy to distract you. And you know what? It depletes you of your prana. It depletes you of your kundalini energy. You'll be more creative not wasting that energy on an overnight stand or a how many minutes of pleasure, if that, of an orgasm, of a climax. How did that serve? It's like, I could have watched a movie and had more pleasure out of that, or I could have read a book, or I could have had dinner. There's so many things that, why regret it? If it doesn't start out right, then it's not going to end well, is it? Nobody, who perverts sex the most, Renee? I don't believe in Satan. I just believe in the imbalance. I don't believe in that at all, because I personally believe that we're all that too. So if Satan exists, then we're that too. We are just as much pure as we are as impure. It's just an imbalance in it all, but neither will exist. So these people who want to say there's good and there's evil, well, guess what? Evil is just the rejection of good. It's the absence of the other. I truly believe the only thing that perverts, it's a manipulation. The only one who perverts is the one who thinks that something isn't right to begin with. We reject all the time. And why reject? Sex is sacred. Sex is meant to be revered as entering into a divine union. And no matter who it is you choose to have it with, I don't want you to ever have regrets for ever engaging, because we have to learn through our personal experiences what it is that we deserve, what we desire, what feels good, what doesn't resonate, what aligns, what doesn't. If you weren't able to have the experience, how would you recognize what felt good to begin with? And so it sometimes takes going down a path that may not feel so good in order to recognize what does feel good. I mean, in my personal experience of having dealt with sexual abuse as a young child, it went through the course of my life where I had to learn to like myself, to respect and honor my body more, to even notice it, to be able to touch myself. Most people are afraid to even look in the mirror. Do you even know what you look like down there? Right? If you can't even look at yourself because you're rejecting it, you think it's ugly, or you have fears about it. See, that's one of the things that most of us have been taught, is that we tend to not even like our own parts, our own body, because we're told it's dirty. And who teaches us that? Man, there's a lot of books that are written, but I don't think even the books are written well. And a lot of it's meant to manipulate. The body is sacred, the body is beautiful, you should embrace it. And, I'm going to share one thing about astrology that I personally believe in. I believe that astrology is like the weather. It's just telling you what's going on around to give you an idea of what other people are experiencing. I don't think it rules us. I think it just tells where we're all at. It's a great indicator to give you a heads up of, hey, look up at the sky. This is the weather. Everybody's freaking out. There's a lot of freaking out going on in the world right now, right? Nobody knows what's next. But we can all sense something's coming around the corner, right? Hey, Jennifer, honey, how are you? So, it took me a while to be able to love my body more, but I was fortunate growing up that my mother had books like Our Bodies, Ourselves. She talked openly with us about sex. And, yeah, Lexi, I feel you, and I can totally understand exactly what you're talking about because I've been there. There's even the irony, and I'm going to share this because I went through this not that long ago, but because I was in my 30s. I was dating a man, and we had a fight, and he was drunk, and I think he was coked up too. And he got mad at me because I didn't want to have sex. And it turned into being violent. And I haven't really shared this with anybody. It turned violent. And I don't know how to explain this. And maybe some of you have experienced this. It became violent, and it became, and I'm going to say it, okay? He forced me into having anal sex, and it was extremely painful. And then it wasn't. And how do I explain that? Anybody out there, can you understand this? It went from being painful to actually becoming pleasurable. How many of you have had that experience and have been willing to even agree that happened? That sometimes the pain turns into pleasure, and how is that possible? Is that a way that we find a coping mechanism to get through it, to allow it? And I can't explain it. And then I had to sit with it and go, I don't understand. Was that good or was that bad? It was painful. It's not what I wanted. But then my body allowed it. So explain that. So sometimes we have a way of shutting off certain pain within our body by turning it into pleasure. You know, the body finds a way of working with what happens. Can't say that it wasn't traumatic because it was unwarranted, and that's the thing, that's the irony, right? How many rape victims out there, myself also, that when it started it was painful and it hurt, and then your body turned it into pleasure. But was it? I don't know. And that's where women, when you're questioned, well, you were ready, you were willing, your body was telling me you were ready, right? So that question makes us question ourselves, doesn't it? When someone says, well, I don't understand. You were saying no, but your body was saying another thing. Yeah, but again, can I go back to, we're not plug and play. You're still resisting, and an orgasm shouldn't necessarily have that start and stop. It should be, again, that kundalini energy, right? Yeah, exactly, Lexi. It is a built-in mechanism. It's a coping mechanism, and the body just says, okay, I turn over to it. I surrender. I'll share something that I've never shared with anybody before because I was really embarrassed. I didn't know if I was going to share this earlier. When I was 15, I feel like I'm singing a Sinatra song or something here. So does being in love and knowing that you're cared about, yeah. So when I was younger and I was 15, because of all that I'd been through, and I'd had some people I loved in my life, I was still a virgin, and I was working at Ryan's Family Steakhouse. I was a hostess. I had a crush on the manager. I had a crush on a couple people. I mean, it wasn't like a major thing. And then something within me, and I don't know if any of you have ever been through this, I didn't want a man to be able to say I was their first. This is something very vulnerable and courageous I'm about to share here. I'm very honest here. I've never said this to anybody. I didn't want to give the power to anyone to say they were my first. So as a result, I was taking a shower, and I said, you know what? I had a shampoo bottle, and it was small enough. It wasn't too big. It was just a small one, but it was just enough. And I decided, they say when you pop your hymen that you bleed. So instead, I decided to do it myself. I didn't want to give the satisfaction. I don't know how to explain this one other than what I grew up with my mom and the way she used to speak. But also because of what I had been through as a young girl. I decided I would not allow another person to be able to say they were my first. And so that's what I did. And I've never told anybody that. And I was reflecting upon it while I was taking a shower the other day because I realized, wow, I had forgotten about that. That not too many people out there, you know, I wanted my first to be special, but then at that age, I don't know why I felt like I wanted it done and over with, and just so that I couldn't give it away to anybody else. Yeah. Sometimes we do crazy things. And then I had a woman who I confided with, that was older, and she started to tell me how I should learn how to touch myself and give myself pleasure. And I was grateful for that, because by her telling me that, and just, it was like she gave me permission that it was okay. that a woman's allowed to touch herself, make herself feel good, right? And that was when I was still 15. And as I grew older and I learned, I still hadn't had the true, oh, thank you, Amanda, hadn't had a true full-out orgasm until much later in life, like early 20s. But I had what some would call premature, not premature, women ejaculate, okay? So there's two ways a woman can orgasm. One is through that creamy white, milky white liquid. That's an ejaculation from a woman. And I had that most of the early parts of my time. But as far as having a true orgasm, it wasn't until I was probably about 20. And I met someone when I was stationed in Korea. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. And it took me a while to really, truly, like, okay, I get this. Now I get this. But it took me up until now to recognize, yeah, isn't your physical first the same? Losing your virginity, it's supposed to be it is supposed to be a beautiful thing. But because I felt so ashamed and so dirty from what I had grown up, what had happened to us as little girls, that I didn't want some man to have that to take that away from me, because I felt like something had already been taken from me. I don't know, that's just how I felt at that time. I can't change my past. I'm not going to go back and regret it. I just am aware of it and accept it. But now where I'm at, and I'm very sexual in the sense that I know my body, I'm very sensual, I know how I need to be touched, I know how I like to be touched, that especially after the last occurrence of the person I was with, that, yeah, and I was having this conversation with Jeanette earlier. We were sharing about women and how important it is. Oh, yeah, right? Thank you, Barbara. I really, really appreciate you sharing that as well. Thank you for your courage. That, as women, this is something that needs to be imparted and taught to other women, that it's not acceptable for a man to just pop it on in. I'm sorry, but we need to also be treated sacredly, because we're opening ourselves up to something so much more, that we're taking in all of that energy. And like the question asked, do you believe that we bond soul to soul through a sacred sex act? Doesn't make it good or bad. If it's an overnight stand, it's still you're taking on their energy, ladies. We need to trust and hold healthy boundaries. That men are not just men, we're not here for a man's pleasure, we're here for each other. That it should be equal in the sense that he wants to engage with you because he wants to be engaged. That it's mutual, it's receptive, it's fluid. If there's no fluid, you've got an issue. Yeah, thank you. Losing. And back then, that's how it felt. Yeah. Nobody wants to lose a part of themselves. If anything, it's this beautiful way to engage and to feel connected to another person. Connecting with a person on that level is another level. But it's also important, and this is one of the more important things to me, that you engage on a cerebral level, on a, chemistry's great. We can all have chemistry. Doesn't mean you have to act on it. God knows how many men I've had chemistry with, and I did not act on it, thankfully. And vice versa, I'm sure. If you don't have something special with another person to begin with, the chemistry, that's all great. But it'll fizzle quick if it doesn't start out with something more robust, right? Profound. I love the word profound. So yeah, you basically, samskars, yep, the scars. I love that the word samskars have the word scar in them, right? So any type of imprint of the man is what a woman takes in, and this is something huge. And we have to consider whatever we're allowing, we're receiving, whether it's conscious or unconscious. You can try to shut it all down. You can say, oh no, I choose not to. But if you've allowed it, you've already received it. So, and I'd love to know from the male perspective, any of you out there that recognize the sacredness of engaging in intimacy, into physical intimacy with a woman, and how is it you were taught? Because there's a huge healing around that for men that needs to happen. You know, it's really easy, like I said, for a man to penetrate, but can he pleasure and make the woman receptive and ready for it first? And to see her as sacred and the anointing that occurs. Because you are joining forces, you are joining energy and vibration. And on both levels, wherever your vibration is, you can increase it through that physical act. You can utilize that Kundalini energy and harness it in a very creative way. We're not talking about just procreation. We're talking about making an intention, setting the intention of how are we going to harness this energy and what are we going to create with it? And it should move mountains. It should shake and rattle the world, in my opinion. My personal opinion and what I had set out for myself was that I wanted my next time to be volcanic and earth-shattering, right? Yeah. Thank you for putting that in there, Barbara, because not everybody remembers. Whatever you're allowing, you're receiving. Exactly. Conscious or unconscious, right? Yeah, and it takes a lot of consciousness and effort and attention to get through this, to work on this, to harness it, right? Let me show you the sunset because I'm getting ready to call it the end for now, because we can continue this on another time. Hopefully you can see how gorgeous this is. If you all have any questions, I would love for you to share in the comments. Let me know. I could talk about this for eons. I mean, I love this kind of discussion. It's huge. We're all trying to find healing. And this is a big one. This is a really important conversation that should be had between men and women before they engage in physical relations. Truly. And no, there should be no fear around this type of conversation. If you can't have this conversation with the other person that you're about to engage with, then there's something wrong. There's a disconnect to begin with. Until you can have the conversation, you should not be having the act. And definitely don't perform any acts, people. I love you all. Please, you know sharing is caring. If this video resonates with you, please throw it in some sex groups. I would love to hear some comments about what they feel about this. This is a truly important conversation. Let us talk about sex. Because that's a conversation that seems to be so easily had, but yet it's not the right way of having it. We're not talking about, hey, what position do you want? What's your favorite? How do you like your eggs in the morning, honey? Unfertilized. You know, the jokes. Haha. Yeah, share it in some of those groups because I think that's the place this needs to be. Or in even healing groups, right? Because there's a lot of healing needs to happen around sex for all of us. So, have an amazing evening. I love you all. Hugs and kisses from the shore and the sunset. Have an amazing evening.